You are watching Xirtus.
But it's not easy. It's not easy being epistemological. You know what I mean? That's like the hardest part, trying to figure out what we are, who we are, what things are beyond ontology. Ontology, what do you think is harder? Epistemology or ontology?
They're inextricably connected. They cannot be separated. The position from which you understand epistemology is always ontologically biased.
But could you ever have, it's harder to have epistemologically biased circumstances, right? Because, I mean,
they're always biased.
Because everything is through ontological perspective.
Right? If you ask the medieval dude, hey, your brother died of tuberculosis, he wouldn't get it. Because tuberculosis is a concept invented in the 20th century. It would be a category that doesn't make sense in his head.
Dude, but the
only in modern times does it make sense.
The consumption still sucked. I mean, even if you called it something else. I don't know. What did Portuguese call the consumption, right? We call it that up until the 1919.
The the plague? Like the
No. So the plague is the bubonic plague, according to us. We call it the bubonic plague, right? Because there's in Ethiopia and in Madagascar in 2012, they were burning down a bunch of trees, and it got these rats in the forest out, and then bubonic plague was spreading. So we have contemporary versions of bubonic plague that we can back up. And then tuberculosis. Yeah, bubonic's back. But tuberculosis is different, right? Because tuberculosis was the one where they said, hey, modern medicine knows better. This is the beginning of modern medical ontology. There's I've got the consumption. I've got the consumption. No, you don't have the consumption. You have tuberculosis, and it's this whole thing, and you have to wear a mask. And tuberculosis is one of the weirdest stories, right? Because it started out before that. You have a gnome. I can't see it, but I know he's there because I can see what gnomes do, and the gnome's working in your brain. That barbarism led into the consumption, led into, we can see that you have bacteria or a virus or some inflammation, which would be the proof of a gnome living inside of your brain or mind.
So it was the gnome's fault. People believe that there was a little guy inside your head.
Not really for consumption, but for a lot of other stuff. Yeah, like a gimp. A gimp didn't used to be a sexual term. A gimp used to actually be in your mind. This Freudian stuff started out pre-sexual. It actually used to just be your whole mind was run by a little consciousness. And we think this way today, really, because a cancer, what's a cancer? Well, it's a mutiny of cells. I mean, how the heck else do you describe that?
Dude, that's lit. Like the, Jung would say that what used to be called demons and shit eventually became called, dreams and these psychoanalytic terms for our imagination, right? What is the internet if not the machine for remixing ghosts, like actual ghosts? It's not like, oh no, they're not real ghosts, Daniel. They're just ideas floating in the internet. No, bro, this is as actual as ghosts get. It's just that we're kind of more sophisticated wizards right nowadays. I mean, look at your t-shirt. You got like flamingos. They're like kind of harmless ghosts, right? But if you remix ghosts well enough, you can take over the world. You can scare people. You can swindle people. You can do all sorts of things.
Remixing consciousness is something I've been thinking about a lot more too because of Facebook, right? Facebook doesn't just record you, it records your timeline. So it can see and it can record all the ways that you've changed based on sociological or intrapersonal responses. And by having that metric, they could create an AI that knows how to change and changes priorities and what priorities that we've had based on emotions, which would be synthetic. So, I mean, we're beating and defeating actual feelings of emotions because you can get right beyond it to the point where, hey, the sensors caused this change in my priorities, right? So if that can be done, I mean, are we not A, becoming machines ourselves? B, are machines becoming sentient? I mean, everyone's trying to pretend they're not, but how sentient are machines,
You know what's tricky? How sentient are we, right? Because people usually talk about how we're losing control because the machines are just taking over. But like, have we ever had any control to begin with? Like this idea that the individual has, like, there's a guy in here that controls the world out there, and that I know as an individual how to act, and there's reason and all this kind of stuff. Well, haven't we learned that was all kind of a little bit of a religious folly? that I think the 21st century will demystify. Listen, people before would take religion for granted. It's like, there's God. Of course there's God. And people would like operate under that assumption. And then 20th century and science came in and were like, no, it's not really like that or whatever. And there's loads of polemics around that. I'm not going to get into that. But isn't the idea of the individual also a religious presupposition that we admit without really questioning it too much? In other words, how much control do you really have in this fucking lifetime?
Well, okay, so the thought I have is a symphony versus the pop star, because the symphony is behind the pop star still. It's not like it disappeared. It's still there, and the symphony still is the most relevant part of music. When you listen to Britney Spears doing karaoke, I mean, you're really impressed because of the symphony behind her and the Max Martin and all the people that are making it possible.
Yeah,
they've all become this fascistic collective. They're the muscle behind the madness. Whereas there's that idea of the despot, that idea of the Britney Spears. Like everybody wants to be Che Guevara, Britney Spears. Everybody wants to have that feeling, right? Where they can be, they want to flick their hair like Jesus Christ, right? In the wind, in the sun, right? So, I mean, is that possible? Are we making it more possible? Or is that what the corporations offer? They're saying, hey, we'll allow you to be more yourself by one of our 4 colors.
What a big question, dude. I don't know. I don't know if it's even possible to escape the fact that forever and ever we will want to be X or Y or Z in that center stage, that we will want to have those characteristics of our objects of desire. But we also, like, as magicians and as people speaking to also magicians, we must also accord some value to the subtextual symphony that is playing all around us, right? That the subconscious that we float on top of, all the ghosts that are just witnesses to whatever's happening in the center of the stage. I mean, my God, let's give it up to these guys, and let's talk a little bit more to these guys, and then hopefully from that conversation, we can be the Britney Spears that everybody else will seek to emulate.
Speaking of becoming Britney Spears, or the MK Ultra equivalent of it, did you see Britney Spears' blood?
I saw a thing,
that
dude.
whole thing. Yeah. So this just came up.
Tell me.
Let me see if I can find the article or wherever have you. Let me see. Britney. If you type Britney Spears blood, God help you. But she said, they weren't taking gallons. It wasn't like 6 gallons of blood, but they were taking weekly, huge. They were taking pints of blood or something like that from this girl who kind of looks like, well, I mean, imagine if you could sell Britney Spears blood, right? Especially back in the day when it was like before Bitcoin. I bet you Britney Spears blood was worth something. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, have you ever read? This is the book that gets kickstarted my endeavors into ontological design. Fritz Springmeyer's The Illuminati Formula to Create a Undetectable Mind Control Slave, or something like that. It's one of those like 1990s occult conspiracy classics, and they talk about like trauma-based mind control, basically. And one of the take in detail, in some detail, but it's also rather sensationalist. But one of the things they mention, and it's this magnificent piece of lore. I advise all occult connoisseurs to collect this book straight away. And one of the bits of content that they have towards the end is exactly that. The ability to draw blood is highly pathical. It has huge emotion. Like, my God, when you see blood, someone else's, your own, spilling in huge quantities, you get a visceral reaction that you cannot quite avoid. And
Katie sends us a super sticker. Guys, if you want ontological questions answered by philosophers instead of psychologists, which is a whole worse idea, then here's the place to do it. But yeah, Frogger, keep going.
So listen, the
blood and
overlap is
emotion.
immense here.
When do you feel things when you see blood? Is that who you are as a person?
You kind of like it's not nothing, right? Especially if it's like fresh, warm blood, like something's happened. That's what blood tells you. Somebody's wounded. Somebody's like your limbic brain kicks in. And is that not like the root of animal sacrifice in pagan religions, which was banned by Christianity? Is that not the root of the kind of stuff that Aleister Crowley was doing, which is paganism? Let's have these two categories as non-pagan and pagan. I mean, it has blood, it's pagan.
Pagan just
but
means
listen,
not part of Corpus Christi, so it just really
and
means
so-
civilian, right? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. Look, Brittany is like this walking, talking sacrifice to be. That's why she's the queen of pop. Like all kings, she's a sacrifice that has not yet happened, and that's why they must draw blood for her
Or
every
she's
time
the
as this
continual-
continuous ritual.
Yeah, continual sacrifice. Her whole life is just
Yeah,
a
why stop?
sacrifice.
Why stop the ritual in like 10 minutes? Why don't make it like continuous?
I mean, yeah, her whole life is suffering, right? Britney Spears' whole life is suffering. It's not South Park kind of made that point where they're making her, hate herself. But yeah, they're taking her kids from her, making her have kids just so that she can't be around them sometimes. I mean, the whole idea just seems pretty brutal.
Yeah.